You've been there before. You find the perfect setup, you place your stop loss exactly where the textbook tells you to, and then price drops, wicks you out, and immediately reverses to hit your profit target without you. That wasn't bad luck, that was a mechanical event. Every time your textbook setup gets stopped out by a single wick right before a massive reversal, you are actually providing the mechanical fuel for an institutional trap. Welcome back to Cycle Logic. Today, we are exposing the most powerful footprint on any chart, the breaker block. We are going to show you exactly how smart money profits from your stop loss, and how you can stop being exit liquidity and start entering the market exactly when the retail herd is being forced out. To understand the breaker block, you first have to understand what a standard order block actually is. An order block is simply the footprint of institutional execution. When large institutions like hedge funds or central banks need to move massive amounts of capital, they can't just click a button without moving the market heavily against themselves. Because of this market impact, they break their large parent orders down into smaller child orders and accumulate positions where liquidity is deepest. On a chart, this looks like a cluster of consolidation activity, followed by a strong, aggressive move called displacement. But here is where things get interesting. Most traders only know about this one standard type of order block. What happens when this block fails? That is where we find the breaker block. A breaker block is simply a failed order block that has flipped its role. What was once a support zone becomes resistance, or what was once resistance becomes support. It's not just a convenient line drawn on a chart, it is an incredibly powerful positioning reorganization point. In my view, it's the most powerful block type you can trade, because it concentrates two massive market forces at one specific zone. The first force is trapped inventory. Think about all the traders who bought at that original order block, trusting it to hold as support. When price breaks through it, they are suddenly offside and underwater. When they finally give up and exit their losing positions, their panic selling actually becomes the liquidity needed to fuel the new direction. Their pain literally fuels your trade. The second force is conditional liquidity activation. Stop-loss orders naturally cluster around obvious reference points, like prior highs, lows, or round numbers. Here is the key mechanic you have to understand. A stop-loss order becomes a market order the exact moment it is triggered. When price pushes below a support floor, all of those hidden stops fire at exactly the same time. This creates a wave of forced selling that feeds on itself, creating a self-reinforcing price cascade. Institutions know this, and they drive price into these zones to trigger those stops and create the massive liquidity they need to enter their own positions. Now, how do you know you are looking at a real breaker block and not just random market noise? You need to filter it using three criteria known as the Holy Trinity. If any of these three are missing, you are trading hope, not structure. First, you need displacement. This isn't just a slow, choppy drift. You need to see price reprice and leave the zone aggressively, proving that a real institutional shift in the balance of power just happened. Second, that displacement must leave behind an imbalance, commonly known as a fair value gap. A fair value gap is basically your visual receipt proving that the displacement was real, showing that price moved so fast through an area that very little two-sided trading even occurred. Third, you need a break of structure. When price decisively breaks the structure, it confirms a true regime change in the order flow, often activating all of that latent conditional liquidity we just talked about. When you see a failed block followed by an aggressive reversal that has displacement, an imbalance, and a break of structure, you have found an engineered entry. So here is your action step for today. Open up your charts and look for the last 3 times you got stopped out right before a reversal. Look closely at the structure and the volume. I guarantee you will find a breaker block sitting right there. Once you see the mechanics behind the trap, you will never look at your stop loss the same way again. If this helped you stop trading like the herd and start seeing the real mechanics of the auction, hit that subscribe button. Stay disciplined, protect your capital, and I'll see you in the next video.